from whoever is in a position to learn from in that way, for me, is truly experiencing professional development, because the judgment becomes better and better and better in course of time. With some teachers faster than with others. With some teachers, perhaps a few teachers never, etc. In any profession. There is no way. Curriculum planners, of course, we all want. What do you want, curriculum planner? You want every teacher in the whole system. That is your aim, isn't it? That is the objective. What is the point of putting that objective before yourself? Okay. Whereas this way, some will, perhaps more will. This seems to me, I know I can think of no better meaning of professional development than this. That professional development happens in the course of the practice of the profession, as a part of it, as a necessary part of it. Okay. I don't mean that there is no place for other inputs, etc., etc., etc. All I'm saying is that this is a very valuable part of it. Okay? And I think we've been concentrating on the inputs far too much to pay attention to this. That doesn't mean if we pay more attention to this, then the other thing is useless. Okay? But the inputs will have value only to the extent that they can enhance, contribute to in some way the teacher's pedagogic judgment in the classroom. And the teacher's pedagogic judgment is something that only the teacher can do, not because the teacher is a grassroots person, etc. I'm no bottom-up ideology, the underdog, etc., etc. Nothing of the kind. Teachers can be as clever or foolish as anybody else. Of course they can. Okay? The point is that the teacher is at the chalk face, where it is possible to see learning, take evidence of learning. If the curriculum maker becomes a teacher in the classroom, he'll probably be a better teacher. So it's not because I want to espouse anybody's cause. There are certain things which, because the difference between teaching and learning, whoever is at the chalk face is in the privileged position. And once you get that perception, then the more you think of curriculum planning, the less faith I found myself having in it. Because what does the curriculum planner do? See, the teacher has to make judgments about one class, one group, or maybe two classes, whatever. Okay. Are they learning? Is there evidence? Yes, these children, my class, has learned this. The curriculum planner has to guess. First of all, determine what should be learned, not by one class, two classes, etc., whole lot, entire system, 1,000 classes. Okay? And what they are capable of learning. What they should learn, what they are capable of learning. And in what time they should learn it. And therefore, what they will learn in each week, in each lesson, in each text. And the next lesson, he assumes that this step has been taken by the whole lot. Okay. But the curriculum says, do this, do this, do this. Now that kind of prediction is impossible, and rather than it's something I'm blaming my own past. I have spent years doing it. So it's not just that I'm angry with it, I'm sad that I didn't realize. Okay, now let me invite questions.
Yeah. Dr. Prabhu will be very happy to respond to the questions from the audience. And by the time the questions start coming in, I have just a small question to you. You are making a very important point about teacher education, teachers learning, being situated in the classroom where the teacher teaches. That education of the developed not to be separated from the teacher's daily practice. But then there is also a tricky situation we are in. There is no relationship or there is no guarantee that our teaching leads to learning. We assume that it does. But as you rightly suggest, that learning is what happens. Teaching is what we do. Now, if we are thinking of developing teachers' development, teacher developing themselves, should teachers think of only improving their teaching and assuming that that will automatically lead to learning?
No, I'm saying that the teacher is in a position to see evidence of learning when it has taken place. And the teacher therefore needs to be able to identify it, to recognize that evidence. Okay. And if he doesn't get he expects the evidence and doesn't get it, then can modify the teaching in some way such that the evidence becomes available. Okay. But there are, and take it a step further, there are really two stages here. One has to do with when the evidence is valid, what evidence. Second, how do I relate such evidence to learning? Okay. So, the first part, it is, you see, if the learners, the teacher doesn't get any evidence unless the teaching is in some sense task-based. That is to say, the lesson, what the teacher does, makes the learners make an effort and come up with a response. Then that response constitutes evidence. Now, if he doesn't get any response, or if he doesn't get any positive response from anybody, then that is sort of negative evidence. That is to say that the teaching didn't work. Teaching wasn't at the right level. Okay. This is the Vygotsky principle. Okay. The learning takes place when the task is such that learners, some learners, several learners, many learners, whatever, can succeed with an effort but not without an effort, or can succeed with support but not without support, whatever. Okay? Then something has been learnt. That's the zone of proximal development. Okay? And that is the essence of task-based teaching. For me, task-based teaching is necessary simply because we have this problem of being able to plan and perceive and control teaching, but not plan or control or perceive learning. Simply because of that. That is what makes it necessary to have relevant evidence. The only way to get relevant evidence is when some learners make an effort, some succeed, some don't succeed. Or whatever happens in the classroom is able to give you evidence of that kind. That for me is the most valuable part of task-based teaching. So the first thing is the evidence, the level of success on the tasks set by the teacher. They show progress. Let me not call it learning. Okay. Progress. And second, if you get evidence of that kind of progress, roughly over a longer period, you begin to see evidence simply as a language teacher, as a language knower, as any parent can see from his children, any adult from a child learning, any native speaker from a foreigner. Evidence that, oh yes, he seems to be learning. He is now able to understand things. He is now able to understand better. He is now able to say what he wants to say. He is now able to do, etc., etc. Yeah. That is language learning. That evidence doesn't need any particular tasks. Okay? What you need is the tasks. What kind of tasks? The best tasks are those, best kind of tasks. Best kinds of tasks are those that where the success leads you. Task success leads to evidence of learning. Therefore, the teacher has the not only from his own daily practice, etc., over time, after many mistakes, etc., etc. But as part of his development, what the teacher gets is not just the judgment that enables the teacher to decide what task to set next, etc., etc. But what kind of task is more useful than another? And that is something that methodologists fight about. Okay? At seminars and conferences. Of course, the teacher can judge wrong in all these matters, just as anybody else can. But the teacher's wrong judgment is an input to better judgment by the teacher later on. And the source of that is in the continuing activity of teaching.
Yeah. Can we have questions from the audience, please, if there are any?
CPD is a process of developing, of moving forward. What next for a classroom-based CPD which you are talking about?
What next?
For the classroom-based CPD which you are talking about. So the teacher is being able to judge the learner or the learning. What next? What will that lead?
I'm not sort of arguing against CPD or any such thing, not at all. Okay. I'm saying here is another angle. Okay. And I think it is another angle. Okay. If so, it should be of some relevance. That is what I'm saying. But what next is an interesting question. I've talked about a process where the teacher develops professionally from her own practice of teaching, normal, regular, recurrent teaching. Just as a doctor does, just as a lawyer does, just as in any profession. There, in what sense can you say what next? What next arises when I am doing it to you. You are developing because I am doing it. Then what next? What next? I do to you. I'm not talking from that point of view at all. Okay? Maybe you want to do that as well. I don't know. But there is this, if this starts, it goes on. Of course, it can slow down, teacher can be distracted, etc., 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 as people in any other profession. Okay. A very successful lawyer can suddenly for some reason, okay, come down in the profession or whatever, okay, that can happen. But this is inherent and it is there. Okay. Now you can ask, if you mean what next, if you mean something like, what can we do to help that process instead of what we are doing? You can ask that. That is to say, instead of planning the teacher's curriculum and making inputs, okay, let's take this view, what I put forward. If that is how the teacher develops, is there anything that we can do to support that instead? If that's what you are asking, yes, it's possible to think of that.
I would like to ask you, in your scheme of things, what role does reflection play in this? Because if you say that it's a teacher's practice which should lead to teacher professional development, shouldn't the teacher be able to reflect on her practice and be able to articulate that reflection so that it becomes an evidence of her development for us to follow?
And if I may add to this a little bit, should teacher occasionally go away from the classroom and practice to reflect on?
Why should the teacher articulate the reflection for whose benefit? For the CPD people.
For her friends and her own benefit, you can look at your own reflection.
You see, there are two different things. You see, a lawyer is able to judge and argue cases better and more successfully, more and more competently as the lawyer grows professionally. That doesn't mean the lawyer can articulate the source of his growth, etc., etc. A lawyer may want to do it, a particular lawyer, or different particular lawyers, different matter. Okay? I'm talking about the process, I'm visualizing a process of development in the teacher, in the process of teaching. Okay? Reflect, I don't know what it means, but for me, if a teacher pauses each week, after each lesson, after 2 lessons or 3 lessons, after each lesson ideally, let's say, did they find it too difficult? Did they find it too easy? Okay? Those are the first two questions to ask. Okay? And the answer yes to both questions is bad. If they found it too difficult, they haven't learned. If they found it too easy, they haven't learned either. Vygotsky said that. They found themselves struggling, they had to make an effort, and some succeeded, some didn't. Yeah, that's what I meant. Let me just complete this. Okay? That is part of the reflection. Okay? And the second stage of it is, if I said, okay, as a result, depending on this, the next task, are they able to find this too easy or too difficult? Are they likely to? And it may turn out that the teacher's judgment was wrong, but the next time it will be better. Therefore, using the teacher's judgment from the last lesson, teacher now sets the task. That's the first process. The second process is, having set a series of such tasks, does the teacher now begin to notice that the teachers are able to show better understanding of what they read or listen to, or be able to answer more probing or inferential questions, or are able to state their answers in a more articulate way, more verbally. Okay? This is general evidence of language progress. If he can link those two, the type of tasks used and the evidence of progress. Okay. Now that teacher has reflected, has done all the reflection that a language teacher needs to, in my opinion.
Do you mean continuous evaluation or exam, or what do you exactly mean by judgment?
No. I'm afraid of the big words like evaluation, very frankly. Okay. You see, a carpenter doing his carpentry work, a screw, that's all right? Only done here. No, it's not. That's judgment. Anybody, a tailor, a carpenter, whoever does whatever, a lawyer drafting a document, whatever. Okay? That's all. Now, you set a task, you expect success, learner's success to be shown in this way. Is that success in evidence? Can I see it or not? Okay? And do I see it from everybody so that, which indicates that task was not tough enough? Or from hardly anyone which shows that the task was too tough? That's all the judgment. And the second kind of judgment is something that all parents know, that the children, okay, the child can talk more now, just as the child can walk more steadily now. CPD, development, is an ambiguous term. It's a transitive verb as well as an intransitive verb. That's the problem. Grow used to be intransitive, now it has become transitive. Except, no, grow, farmer grows wheat, but now we grow the economy. We grow anything. We grow our manufacturing industry. Okay? So language changes. However, develop, CPD, does it mean, I asked myself the question, are we talking about how we ensure, we meaning anybody in the profession, okay, that classroom teachers develop professionally continuously? We do something to develop them, or they develop. Okay? And my judgment so far from 6 hours acquaintance is that a majority of it, more than half of it at least, is in the transitive sense. I may be wrong. Therefore, since the intransitive sense seems to me small, I thought I would underline it.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have time for any more questions. Please. It has been really a very valuable experience for all of us, and I think you will all agree with that. And Dr. Prabhu is not the only person in the hall today. Several other people have mentioned at various times that for many of them CPD is something new. For the first time they have heard this word. I personally believe that this happens when certain field starts taking a theoretical shape or start theorizing about itself. In case of various methods like grammar translation or communicative language teaching, it's not after the terms that these things started. There was practice, and slowly from the practice certain patterns emerged, and slowly a theory was built around that practice. Probably CPD is going through that phase, And it's really your valuable contribution, Dr. Prabhu, that you have stimulated this debate about how we really conceptualize CPD and whether we are aware that we need to relate it to our own context, and whether we constantly remind ourselves that it has to be relevant. I think this is just a starting point of the journey, and probably this is first ever event that was specifically devoted to CPD, and one of the primary objectives of this event was to start a debate so that as many people as possible join this churning, this discussion, this thinking about CPD. And we are aware that it's a very long and complex process, but we do hope that later on, sometime in future, a more sustained and more well thought out and formulated ideas and framework of the CPD will emerge. And we will always remember that you had been one of the pioneers to contribute to this debate. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And we are grateful to you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hope you feel refreshed after your tea. As you know, my name's Beth Caldwell and I'm the academic manager at the Chennai Teaching Centre. And I think the reason that I'm here today amongst your esteemed guests is that one of my many responsibilities in my job is to make sure that we have a framework for CPD within the British Council Centre that I'm working in, and that I make the teachers aware of what tools there are available for their development, and also, and this is one of the hardest parts, is that I motivate the teachers to take advantage of those tools. So this is a bit more practical. It's a case study, if you will, so that you can see what we do and hopefully get some ideas about what you can go and do, either as an institution or as an individual. Okay? Approach. So obviously the institutional side of it, so for example, as I mentioned, we provide frameworks for CPD, we publicise opportunities, but of course there's no point having it unless the individual takes advantage of those opportunities. Now as an institution we can make some things compulsory, but again, I think we've had this discussion, just because you've trained somebody doesn't mean that you've developed somebody. You can't say that the learning has taken place. So I tried to divide the information today into two parts. So what we provide as an institution and what's available for the individual. Now it's almost impossible to make a clean division, because sometimes there are things that we might provide and the individual might not take up, or that the individual might suggest things that then become institutionalised. So it's a bit of an artificial split, but there you go. Okay, so before we start, I just want to mention the BC, the British Council CPD framework. Okay, so there were some leaflets about this earlier, which have gone, but it's also available on the Teaching English website as well. So there are 6 stages. So you start with the starting, which is obviously people doing initial teacher training. As far as the BC is concerned, that's generally the CELTA course, for my teachers anyway. Then you go into newly qualified and so on. So obviously development needs are going to be different at different stages. Now, as far as the British Council CPD framework is concerned, starting is obviously 0, newly qualified is 0 to 2, and developing is 2+. Now, in my context, we try to fast track a little bit more, because we're trying to increase the knowledge and the skills bank amongst the teachers that we have. So if you look at the numbers in green, for me, in my context, starting is 0, the same. Newly qualified would be 0 to 1, developing would be 1 to 2, and proficient would be 2+. Obviously, it depends on the person as well. There's no fixed time frame for these things to happen. But there are explanations of what these mean on the Teaching English website. Okay, so these are all the things that we have. that we have in our frameworks for our institutional support. And I'm going to talk you through some of these things. So we'll come back to this slide in a moment, but let's have a look. You can see this is a very simplified version of a huge Excel sheet that I have of what's available. So you can see across the top, we've got how many years post, as I say in my case, post-CELTA, so post-initial qualification. And you can see that certain things are happening at different times within the careers of the teachers that I work with. Those things that are in red are internal compulsory activities. Those in blue are internal non-compulsory, and those in green are external opportunities. So these are all the different training and development opportunities we have. So one of the key things that we have, and this is British Council Global Standard, is the learning and performance management process that goes in 12-month cycles. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. Okay, so every teacher has a learning and development plan, and they will pick usually around 3 or 4 goals for the year in terms of their own personal learning and also in terms of the wider team goals of the centre. So they are responsible for deciding what those targets are, but they have to make those targets SMART. Now, who can tell me what SMART stands for? Yes, there's a hand over there. What's the first one?
Small, specific.
Specific. Okay, great. So instead of saying I'm going to get better at teaching writing, it's very big. I might say, well, you know, you've got to look at which levels, what ages we teach young learners, and we teach adults, and we teach adults from business. We teach students, so they would have to sort of narrow that down a bit. What's M? Measurable. Yes, we said it. Okay, so measurable. They need to be able to say, you know, what are they going to do? How do they measure it? So different ways to measure it, such as are they going to get feedback from the students? Are they going to get observation reports? What are they going to do to measure the effect of what they've been developing? Okay, what's A? Achievable. Yes. So obviously, teachers are doing their job. They're working very hard. We don't want them to have goals that take up so much of their time. Yes, as was discussed earlier, a lot of this should be happening as part of their job. So what they're teaching in class, so it's achievable. R? Realistic. Yeah, realistic. So I'm not going to learn the entirety of Michael Swan's practical English usage. It's not a realistic goal. And T? Time bound. So it's very important that they stick to goals and deadlines. So how long is it going to take you to do? When are you going to do it? How many times are you going to do it? That kind of thing. Okay. As I said, it's linked to a variety of different goals, but it's all driven by the teacher themselves. So they will come up with the plan and they will work with their line manager to develop it. It's linked to development pathways, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. Also, as part of the learning and performance management process, there are the 2 formal observations a year, which is probably what you're familiar with, those sort of things where the manager and the boss comes in and watches. Obviously, those formal observations are not supposed to be seen as indicative of failing performance. They're supposed to be developmental as well. And we'll talk more about observations because they're not the only observations that happen in the centre. They also have mid-year reviews. So they'll meet with their line manager and discuss the progress on the plan. They'll make changes to the plan if they need to, and they'll seek advice if they need to. Their line manager's available at any point year-round. The mid-year reviews are fixed, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to speak to your line manager any other time. And where we can, we link our in-service teacher training programme to the learning and development plans of the teachers. Okay. Right, okay, so that brings me nicely onto the inset program and the training days that we have. Okay, so we have 7-week terms and we managed to fit in 3 to 4 1-hour to 90-minute sessions for teacher training, okay? We have a 2-tier program. So those that we consider NQTs, newly qualified teachers, that 0 to 1, will have at least one session specifically targeted at them. And those who are more experienced and need to upskill further will have at least one targeted at them. Now, we have a mixture of contracted teachers and hourly paid teachers. So some of the insets, to make sure that the hourly paid teachers come, will be compulsory, will be paid. So that's one way that we try and ensure that people are actually coming to the sessions. We found that they come to even the non-paid sessions as well. I'm very lucky, I've got a very enthusiastic teaching team. We also have 2 full dedicated training days a year. So there are no lessons, no courses on that day, and there are full days. And the subject of those days will be driven both by teacher feedback in terms of what they've written in terms of their training needs, and also operational needs. We also encourage the more experienced teachers to deliver the inset sessions. So a lot of the inset sessions are delivered by the teachers themselves, with support from the management team if they need it. And the BC also has other online training that's compulsory for all members of staff, whether they're teachers or not, but they're also learning opportunities. Okay. All right, so I mentioned before the career development pathways. So once teachers have got to a more experienced stage, then we actually have mapped out pathways that they can use and adapt, of course, to help them develop where they want to go in their career. So around about sort of when they've done a year or 2 years, depending on the pathway, they can have a look and decide that this year they'd like to research into that. And it's got very clear steps and very clear goals. So the mapped pathways that we have materials development, we have conference preparation, we have line manager, so that would be obviously someone who then becomes more of a mentor, into a mentoring role. We have senior teacher, which is the teaching admin side of things, and we have the teacher training development path as well. So the teachers can utilise those and adapt them if they want to. Okay, I mentioned the mentoring program, the NQT, the Newly Qualified Teachers Program. Okay, so for the first 12 months post-CELTA, if we employ somebody who is not CELTA +1, we have a mentoring program. They are assigned a mentor who's an experienced teacher for a minimum of 6 months, which is about 3 terms. In the first 6 months, they also have mandatory peer observations. So we get them to go and observe teachers who are teaching the same level and the same course type. And then as they go through the program, towards the end of the program, we also get them to go and observe teachers who are teaching levels and course types that they've not experienced. We also have formal and informal observations, and that's 1 to 2 a month as part of the program. And they will be mainly the mentor doing that. They'll write an action plan at the end of every term based on their experiences and what they want to develop in the next term. Obviously, I mentioned the NQT insets. And they also have a buddy, so that's any teacher who's been with us for more than 6 months, who knows the system, who knows the centre, and the buddy is their point of contact for anything that they need. So you know what it's like when you start a new job, you don't know where anything's kept, you don't know how to find anything, you don't know what to expect. So we found that it's very comforting for them to have a buddy who expects them to come and ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And it's also been a good experience for those being buddies because they've had the opportunity to do, to a certain extent, some mentoring with the new teacher. And in fact, the buddy is assigned to anybody who starts new at the teaching centre for at least a term. Okay. We also offer the opportunity to do British Council Global Teacher Training courses. Again, you'll find more about those on the Teaching English website. But there's things like we're going to have people doing the Learning Technologies course. There's Primary Essentials. There's TKT Essentials. We've used some of the TKT product. So there's also that opportunity. In terms of external training opportunities, well, there's the CELTA YL extension, and then for more experienced teachers there's the Delta, and then we also have other external courses. So we have International House has a management course by distance, and there's the Cambridge English Teacher website that has short courses, and in fact that was actually a teacher initiative. One of the teachers said, I would like to take one of the courses in pronunciation off the Cambridge English Teacher site. What do you think? I found out that it was a mere £25 UK. So we offered to fund that in return for her training in an inset. Okay, so we will offer funding opportunities, but we also get the advantage of that because the teachers can then cascade. We've also offered language improvement opportunities. So teachers who felt that they were struggling in certain areas of language have had the opportunity to take the Cambridge Main Suite exams, and we've supported them with study groups and tasks, and that's been, again, a great learning experience for them. Okay, let's see what I've missed. So you can see I've been through quite a few of these. There's a job shadowing scheme in the British Council at large where you can apply to shadow somebody in their work, and as well as job shadowing in the teaching centre itself, we have course shadowing. So for example, I was delivering a TKT preparation course, and two of the teachers were shadowing me doing that. We have IELTS Train the Trainer courses, and we had people shadowing the trainer on the Train the Trainer courses. We have a fantastic resource library, which again is one of my responsibilities to keep well stocked. And luckily we also have the British Council library on site, which has a huge ELT and linguistics section, which I'm sure is true for Bangalore too. We pay for journal and website subscriptions. So how many of you have heard of One Stop English? It's great. If you haven't, go and have a look at it. So we actually have an institutional subscription to One Stop. It's full of lesson plans, lesson ideas, teacher forums. It's wonderful. We subscribe to the English Language Teacher Journal, Teaching Journal, Modern English Teacher magazine. It's coming up later. We also sponsor conference attendance. So for example, our senior teacher corporate has just come back from the IATEFL BESIG meeting in Germany, which is the Business English Special Interest Group. So we actually funded her. Again, the benefit of that is it will help her in her work, but also she will cascade the sessions that she attended. And we also support people who want to deliver at conferences too. So at the moment we've got 2 lots of proposals pending to see if they've been accepted for the Hyderabad conference in March. So that's something that I encouraged teachers to go for. We also, as I mentioned, we offer funding and support for external courses in language or in methodology. Okay, so let's move on to the individual tools that are there. So again, this is another theme that's come up, I think, today, is peer observations. Now, I'm very lucky, as I said, I've got a great team and they get on very well and they're very, very into observing each other. If someone's taking a course that the other person has never taught before, they'll go and watch. If someone has tried something out that the other person has never tried before, they'll go and watch. And they watch each other and support each other, and it's really positive. And I think by making the observations compulsory during the mentoring program, it gets people into a habit of going to do that. We also had an inset session where we looked at observations and what they were all about, and we had a wall, and on that wall it said, I would like to see, and the other wall said, I'm very good at. And the teachers wrote what they thought their skills lay in and what they wanted to sort of improve their skills in. They had to look round and try to match what they wanted with what people could offer. So that's been very successful. Self-observations. So having somebody watch you is daunting for all of us. We have a video camera and we have audio equipment. So we'd also encourage teachers to record themselves. It's amazing what you can learn about what you do in the classroom by watching yourself. And that way you're not having to involve anyone else and you're not having to feel too nervous about your manager coming in to see you or whatever. I mentioned the mentoring and buddying. So the buddying particularly is voluntary. So that's a great developmental experience. We encourage experimental practice, and obviously that goes into the wider thing of action research. In fact, our last training day was all about action research and ways to approach that. Peer collaboration. So we have a drive on the computer of shared materials divided by level and course type, and teachers will contribute to that shared bank so that when you're coming to teach a course you already have a bank of materials. Peers also collaborate. Occasionally we have class shares so that there'll be some team teaching or there'll be collaboration about that. And also, again, I'm really lucky, I work in a staff room where teachers do talk about English a lot and teaching a lot. So it's the sort of staff room where someone will walk in and say, I don't know how to stop so-and-so speaking in Tamil. And someone will say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And so that's another area where they're collaborating with each other to improve their practice. There's the British Council websites, which I'm sure you all use on a regular basis. Here. If you sign up to these, they're all free. You get, every week, you get a newsletter that highlights things. So what happens in my context is I've signed up and then I send that out to the teachers and maybe mention to people, have you seen that fits in with your plan, or have you seen that? Obviously it's up to the teachers if they use them, but we've found that all of these are absolutely fantastic. Teaching English is great in terms of having a community. There are webinars, there are forums, there are lesson plans, and then the other three, Learn English is aimed at adults, and then we've got Learn English Teens and Learn English Kids, and they're full of lessons, lesson ideas, videos, materials. So them in themselves are a great source of ideas and new things. Peer and student feedback. So we encourage 360-degree feedback. So it's not obviously just feedback from me as the academic manager or from their line manager. It's actually getting feedback from their students, and if there's peer observations, maybe getting feedback, or maybe just having a discussion or asking questions about what they've just observed. But we encourage a variety of different feedbacks. We have, twice a year, we have a swap shop inset session. And the idea of the swap shop is that everybody brings their favourite activity that they think probably the other people might not know. So it might be a game, it might be a way of doing things. And everybody gets 5-10 minutes to show their favourite activity, and that's a really dynamic source of ideas and fun. We've got the journals and the subscriptions, as I mentioned. So we've got One Stop English, which is paid. We get the LTEX newsletter. How many of you get the LTEX news? Oh, not enough. Okay, LTEX, again, you sign up to it, it's free, but it gives you information about conference opportunities, training opportunities, workshops, all sorts of things. And that comes once a week. And again, that's a great source of finding out what's available here. We subscribe to the English Language Teaching Journal, which is a paid subscription, and to the English Teaching Professional magazine. Okay. So we also have been encouraging teachers to look at writing articles themselves or contributing to forums themselves, and platforms that are available to do that. Again, the Teaching English website, the British Council Teaching English website, there's a chance to write about your experiences or write an article for that. One Stop English is the same. And we recently got some information from Teacher Plus magazine, which is Hyderabad based, and they are looking for contributors. So again, that's another, and then it's paid as well. You get paid for contributing to Teacher Plus. So that's another opportunity to write articles. Okay, and then there's webinars and podcasts. And again, you look online, there's hundreds, but so 3 places that are good to look. We've got the Teaching English website again, One Stop English, they have webinars and podcasts, and IATEFL. How many of you know IATEFL? It's the International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language. And every year in April they have a huge conference in the UK. They have special interest groups that have meetings and conferences elsewhere. And when they have the April conferences, they live stream a lot of the workshops and the presentations. So you can actually attend IATEFL without having to travel anywhere. And again, that's a great source of up-to-date training, workshops, whatever. And we paid for institutional membership of IATEFL because then we have access to the special interest groups and things like that. And also they have scholarship opportunities to actually go to IATEFL conferences. Okay, so such a lot of things. Hopefully you've had some ideas from what's available out there and what we do. Obviously, I think this is very similar to what everyone else has been saying all day, that ideally CPD has institutional support and individual motivation. Okay, so as an institution, as I say, it's my responsibility to make sure that there are frameworks in place and that teachers are motivated and aware of what's available, but it's the individual's responsibility to manage their own CPD and take advantage of the tools that are available for this. There's so many out there. Okay, so you'd be glad to know that's the end. My email is here if you want to contact me, and this presentation is a Prezi, and it's actually available online at this address. So if you wanted to revisit it, you'd be welcome to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you'll be pleased to know we're in the final 20 minutes, so we're just going to keep you for the final session, which I'm going to hand over to Amal to lead. Thank you for your patience so far.
In this, before we start with this worldwide tour of a CPD story competition, where teachers were asked to share their personal stories, some very unique and very highly meaningful incidents from their personal lives, which tremendously contributed to their CPD. And the book you have in your bag, the book that was launched today, contains the 10 best shortlisted stories of teachers. And out of those, one story was chosen as the winning entry. And Rachana Khosla, who teaches in a school in Delhi and who works with special needs children, is the winner of that competition, and she goes to the international IITFL competition conference in Liverpool next year. I would strongly recommend that you should read those stories and find out how sometimes simple, short experiences trigger a long process of personal development. The second thing I would like to talk about is the posters you have seen on the slides and also on the walls. And we are very happy that there has been a lot of interest in those posters. At the moment, those posters are available as flash images on our website, but very soon we will also be uploading PDF files so that you can anytime download them, print them, put them up in your staff rooms, on corridors, or hopefully even in the public squares of your towns, so that we can spread this CPD virus more. The posters are available on the site www.theinet, THEAINET, theinet, www.theinet, THEAINET, theinet, AINET, theinet.net. And I take this opportunity also to invite you to visit this website, because INET is short for All India Network of English Teachers, and this is a free online community where you have loads of resources, activities, tools, publications available, and where we really want you to come and contribute whatever you can. This is a sharing place. .net. It's .net.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the posters are available for free, and we are planning to add some more posters to that series. And if you have brilliant ideas, please let us know so that we can have a long series of posters. Let us take this as our responsibility to promote CPD among our colleagues and friends. So back to implications. You had some tasks given to you for the day. 3 questions. So are there any immediate quick responses to what's new, what's interesting that you found today? Yes.
I spoke to Rod about it. His mention of peer observation, that I found something new and interesting both. And I was wondering how it would work in the Indian context. And he was explaining to me that if you work in pairs where you trust the other person and you expect him not to use it to pull you down, then it would actually really work to your benefit. I found that really interesting.
Thank you very much. I mean, you correctly said that in our context, that helps to build the trust, which is the basic element in peer observation.
Yeah, I would just reinforce that and say that it's not meant to be an assessment where your peer goes and tells the principal what you did or didn't do. So that shared understanding of what the peer observation is has to be very, very clear. Are there any other new or interesting points you'd like to share? So, lady here.
I heard the word action research earlier, but in this conference, in this symposium, I learned it completely, I think, with Prabhu sir and also all others discussions. I could understand, and I took a book from the founder also on action research from RIE, I think it is the book, and I'm going to implement that in my class and also discuss with my colleagues.
Hello everybody. The first interesting and very stunning thing that I understood today is a CPD we were thinking in terms of vertical development or horizontal development. But the way Prabhu sir has analyzed it, that whatever teacher does should be based on the needs to cater to the needs of the learners. And if you are able to make your learners change, you will certainly change. To change yourself, you'll find 1,000 other ways to bring change in your classroom. So this really made me understand how this part of growth that we are aiming at will be more authentic and more socially benefited one if it revolves around that. And for that, teachers, if he is catering to primary learners, maybe he'll do much better job there and go on growing with the learners. And at the end, towards the end, maybe we'll see many experts like Dr. Prabhu himself. So that's the new interesting thing really.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Rod also mentioned earlier in the morning that we are all here in this room because there are learners out there. So whatever we are doing here are eventually for the benefit of our learners. Any comment on that?
Sorry, here I have understood that there is no substitute for teachers, even though our education system is child-centered. And then one more doubt I have. Here, sir, it is often said that teachers are born, not made. But it is not true nowadays, because most of the teachers are made by the private centers. We call them educational institutions nowadays. So, isn't it so much necessary? CPD is necessary for those teachers.
I think it will be a too dangerous thing to get into that debate whether teachers are born or made now at the end of the day. But yes, CPD, I would say, and I think you will all agree that it's essential for everybody. As one gentleman I had the pleasure of talking to during the lunch break pointed out that CPD is already well-developed processes and frameworks in many other industries. And in that term, education is lagging behind. We are just beginning to take this more seriously. So any profession, not just teaching, professional development is an integral part. I would take this opportunity to say that I personally look at the metaphor of diamond in terms of born or made. So a diamond is found naturally, but it doesn't have any value until it is properly shaped. So whether a teacher is born or made, the teacher has to continuously shape himself or herself up throughout the career. Okay, there was one more question we wanted to ask you, and because there should be enough questions for you to keep busy, but we believe that you take this as take-home question. What you would do with the book you got today?
This one, remember?
There are some immediate answers. Thank you.
I want to share it in a staff meeting with all my teachers and get their comments on it. And if they are motivated, probably talk to the other cluster schools in the area and get them all together for a really big staff meeting where we can really think about CPD.
Thank you, lovely. Yeah, you wanted to say something.
Actually, I am from law department, so I want to go through the book, read it and see what experiences people have. And if something is very good, I want to observe it and spread it to others.
Thank you. And we would definitely like you to read this book and probably be very disciplined with yourself and not have dinner tonight and go to sleep tonight until you have finished the book. And we would be really delighted. I'm sorry.
Just to remind you that actually in the back there was a very nice flyer encouraging teachers to keep their own portfolios, and I thought that was very well structured. So I think that was an important part of the conference, this development. Maybe you could say something.
Yeah, Professor Amritavalli was suggesting that this is also a good activity that we can use to trigger our development. We can maintain our portfolios, our developmental portfolios, and there is a nice file here that gives us an idea. Yeah, and there are two interesting articles in this book, and one of the articles is about developmental portfolios. So from our side, there are some suggestions that you could definitely do. One is to read the book. Second is, please do respond to one or more contribution, one or more articles in those books, then the contributors' details are mentioned in the end of the book, and we'll be really delighted to hear your feedback, your response, your comment. Even if you don't agree with something we have said, that's also a very, very valuable feedback for us. If you want to adopt it, try these things out, please do, and please share with us, because that will be a learning experience for us. Secondly, we would be really delighted if you spread the information about this book and share the book with as many people as possible. And can I see if they need more copies? They are available from the British Council. And it will be also on the website, freely downloadable, so you can always access it. Thirdly, we also plan to bring out a CPD newsletter. And if you have any interesting CPD experiments around you or in your personal knowledge, or you have yourself tried out something, or you have very interesting CPD experience to share, please do get in touch with us. We will be delighted to include that in the newsletter so that more people learn about it. Okay? Hand over to Alison for final comment.
A big thank you on behalf of the British Council and the CPD think tank group members, and I'm sure Rod also is sending his thanks from the audience. A huge thank you to the Regional Institute of English, South India. And I know we'll hear in a moment exactly who's been responsible for helping pull this event together, but thank you very, very much for your time and commitment and support for this event. It's been hugely appreciated. So thank you very much, and I hope we'll meet you again at the next symposium.